All right, so if you're working with data, chances are you're using SQL. But let's be honest, for a lot of us, it's pretty much just select, from, where, and that's kind of it, right? Well, today we are cracking open the SQL Cookbook to find some seriously powerful, elegant solutions that go way beyond those basics. So yeah, let's get cooking.
I mean, does this sound familiar? You know just enough SQL to get by. You know, you can pull the records you need, but you always have this nagging feeling that there's got to be more to it. You end up exporting your data to like a spreadsheet or something else to do the real heavy lifting because you figure you've already hit the ceiling of what a query can do. But what if that's just wrong? What if SQL itself has the keys to unlock way more complex problems right there inside the database? Imagine if you could do more, do it faster, and with queries that are just cleaner and more direct.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. We're going to dive into a few recipes from the SQL Cookbook that take those everyday data headaches and turn them into some really powerful techniques. This is how you make that leap from just being a SQL user to becoming a true SQL artisan.
Okay, so first up, let's get into some of those really common data puzzles. You know the kind, the ones that make you want to pull your hair out. But believe it or not, they have these surprisingly elegant solutions just waiting for you right inside SQL.
I'm sure you've been here before, right? You pull a list of salaries maybe, but what you really want is to slap some categories on them. You need to add context, but your first thought is probably, I'll just deal with that in a spreadsheet later.
Well, guess what? You don't have to wait. Take a look at the after view here. By using a case expression, we can build that if this, then that logic right into the query itself. Seriously, it's like having a little if-else statement that runs on every single row, creating this brand new dynamic column that makes your data instantly way more insightful.
Oh, and here's another classic headache. You've got this column with mixed text and numbers. You try to sort it, and you get this, a complete mess, right? The database is just sorting it all as text, alphabetically. It's a jumble, and it is definitely not what we want. So the trick, the recipe here, is to basically teach SQL how to see the numbers and the text as separate things. You use some clever string functions to say strip away all the letters to leave only the numbers. And once you do that, you've isolated the exact piece of the puzzle you actually want to sort on. And boom, look at that result. It's perfectly sorted by the numeric part. We didn't have to touch the original data at all. We just wrote a smarter query. This is exactly the kind of everyday data cleaning puzzle that a powerful SQL query is just built for.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now let's build on that. Let's talk about what happens when we're working with multiple tables. Now, joins are, the bedrock of SQL, but they're not just for finding what matches. We can get really clever and use them to find what's missing. And this leads to a fantastic, very real-world business question. Let's say you have a table of departments and a table of employees. How do you find the departments that have absolutely zero employees? Think about it. A standard inner join is never going to show you that because it's only built to return rows where a department and an employee match up. The secret ingredient for this recipe is the outer join. See, unlike an inner join, an outer join will keep all the records from one table. We'll use our departments table as an example, even if it can't find a matching employee on the other side. And for those lonely departments with no match, it just sticks in a null value. And this comparison here makes it so clear. Look at the left. The inner join completely drops Department 40 operations because, well, no employees. But on the right, the left outer join keeps it. And you can see exactly where the employee information should be. There's just nulls. And that null, that's the golden ticket. It's the clue we've been searching for. And here's the best part. The final step of the recipe is so beautifully simple. You just take that outer join result and you add one little filter where the employee ID is null. And bam, just like that, you've perfectly isolated the departments with no employees. This technique, by the way, is often called an anti-join, and trust me, it is incredibly useful. All right, for this last section, let's get into something that I guarantee you've done before, but probably not in SQL. We're talking about some pretty advanced data shaping and analysis, the kind of thing where your first instinct is to just export the data and deal with it somewhere else. Come on, we've all been there. You have this raw, long, transactional data, and you need to pivot it into a nice, wide, summarized report for a presentation. The go-to move for 99% of people? Export to a spreadsheet, build a pivot table. But what if you could just skip that whole step?
So your data probably starts out looking something like this, a long, skinny table. And look, that's the right way to store it in a database, one fact per row. It's super efficient for the computer. But for a human, trying to compare monthly sales side by side, it's not great. Okay, so the recipe to flip this around is called pivoting. And it's basically 3 simple steps. Step 1, you group by whatever you want to keep as your rows. So in our case, the employee. Step 2, you use that cool conditional logic we learned about earlier, that case expression, to create a new column for each category, like each month. And finally, step 3, you just aggregate the values, like the sum of sales, that fall into each of those new columns. And there you have it. The long, skinny data is completely transformed into this wide, easy-to-read summary report. You've got employees as rows, months as columns, and all the values are perfectly summed up. This thing is ready for a presentation, and it was all done with a single query. No exporting, no spreadsheets. How cool is that? So you see, just by stepping a little bit beyond those basics, we've totally transformed SQL from just a tool for pulling data into this powerful engine for cleaning it, shaping it, and actually analyzing it. Your personal toolbox just got a serious upgrade. I mean, think about it. In just the last few minutes, we've covered recipes for adding if-then logic with case, for sorting that messy mixed data, for finding records that aren't there with an anti-join, and even for completely pivoting data for reports. These aren't just tricks. These are super powerful, practical skills you can use. And that's really why this all matters so much. The cookbook calls SQL the lingua franca, the common language of data professionals. And getting better at it, deepening your fluency, that doesn't just make you faster. It makes you a much more capable, more insightful data pro, period. All that power is just sitting there waiting for you in the query window. So the real question is, now that you know what else is possible, what are you going to ask your data next?